Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, the show all about Jon Moxley right here on the Poison Rana network. And I am your host, Martin Bushby. Joining me are my Ambrose, Dickie Bird, and Brandon from New Jersey. And we just had a few technical difficulties because Brandon, you're not in your normal place for obviously non-video viewers. Brandon's coming live from his car this time around. What's going on, Brandon? You've been having some internet issues, haven't you?
Yeah, apparently I got double booked, so here we are.
Can you hear me? That's not what you told us. You said you couldn't get 5G in your house, so you had to do it from the mobile satellite that you've got in your car or something.
Wi-Fi was just fine.
Okay, all right. Anyway, the signal isn't great, so we'll just point.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's quite delayed and a bit choppy.
This is a disaster right now.
But that's okay.
I'm sure we'll manage. I'm sure you phoned into many shows on your phone before, yeah. What about you, Dickie? How's it been with you? Oh my God.
Brandon, you're very delayed, so just maybe just wait till we throw to you, and then we'll keep it very much like a walkie-talkie, over and out kind of thing.
And now you froze.
Okie dokie. Martin, what was your question?
Okay, great.
Well, so how's it been going with you, Dickie, since we last recorded with Way? Oh my God! Yes, Brandon, we can hear you just on delay.
Yeah, so you're very delayed, Brandon. So just we'll throw to you when we need to. We need you. So I was going to say, good to be on a show where one of the people on the show isn't going to throw a wrench in the works halfway through the show or something. I loved having Way on, but when he said, "How long is this podcast?" I was like, "Whoa, all right." But instead we get Brandon every 5 minutes going, "Can you guys hear me?" on this one. So no, it's all good. What's been going on since we had Way on? Oh, not much. It's not really much to discuss.
No, nothing,
I guess the one
major
thing
going on in the world or anything, has there? No.
Well, the one thing that's like completely and utterly being buried because of everything else is the fact that since the last time we chatted, I'm going to be having another baby.
Congratulations!
Thank you. My wife is going to be having another baby. I'm just going to be standing there. Yeah. So while you guys are flying off to Vegas for WrestleMania in the United States, the land of the not free and the home of the cowards, then I will be knee deep in children by this point. So early April. Also might give you a bit of an out for possibly that month, depending on your travels and stuff, because I will be going on paternity leave for 2 months. So I will miss 2 shows during next year after much else. April and May, I won't be around, but yet very exciting. Thought if we're gonna have 2 kids, we may as well just get them out of the way as soon as possible. Not wait too long. I'm not getting any younger, so yeah. And apart from that, I don't know. The world has gone to shit.
But huge congrats, mate. That's fantastic news. So yeah, huge congrats to you and the missus. Yeah, that's brilliant. So I noticed that Chris Leone had put in the chat, "Knee deep in children sounds like Trump might consider you for an attorney general spot."
I mean, this is the thing. If you I don't want to go off on a big rant because I live in Australia and I feel bad for people like Brandon who actually have to live in this country. So I don't want to you know, it may come off as a bit rich that I kind of say, oh, it's so stupid, and then after this, I just go and enjoy my own country. But I will say this: if you voted for Donald Trump or you promoted Donald Trump, at some point during this time, like you will probably regret that decision. And if that's the case, you have to leave social media altogether. You have to log off the internet. You do not get involved in any pyramid schemes like Amway. Do not invest in cryptocurrency, because you are so easily taken advantage of. So someone out there is just ready for you to walk into a room and take everything that you have because you've walked straight in. Look, it's already been a week. He's not even the president yet, and you know the church is so grateful of Donald Trump and so grateful that they've put a alleged sex trafficker and alleged statutory rapist into the Attorney General's position. I don't see how those two things can coexist, and it just comes down to the grift that is happening. You know,
but like I mean, this is all, he's a con artist. This is all like, you know, to shock and all everybody. But God knows what true evil they are conniving while we're distracted with these appointments. So, you know, God knows.
Like I said,
God knows how the world's going to be when you come here in the spring, Martin. But
yeah.
So
yeah, and
we're not even
that's my point. That's my point. Is like it's already been a freak show in the first week, and that is not even the scary point. Like I'm not telling people, oh, you should regret this already, kind of thing. I'm telling you will over the course of the next 4 years. There will be a point where you go, I made a huge mistake, and if that's the case, you have to tell yourself that you are probably one of the most low IQ people, and that you have to shield yourself from everyone else trying to take advantage of you. So anyway, apologies.
It's okay, because they can just retreat to their prayer closets, can't they? But anyway,
we're off to a roaring start.
Should we talk about X now? Anyway,
yeah, no, let's leave that till the end, because Dickie, you've got some chopped cheese things to talk about.
Just a real quick one. Shut up, Brandon. Just a real quick one. The Poison Rana varsity jacket in all of its glory is now officially available in the store. It's been on pre-order, kind of like we'll guarantee your purchase in your preferred size sort of thing. But they've all now arrived at the warehouse, and the sizes that are there, the stock must go, and there are only a few left. So 2XL and 3XL have sold out, and I believe there's only one small left, 2 mediums left, 2 larges left, and 3 extra larges left. So if you're interested, I'm going to tell you this: having these made and sold is like a 6-month process. I'm very tired, so I'm not so enthusiastic about getting these restocked. So I at minimum, it would be another year if these reappeared, and I would probably want to do something different anyway. So I would say, like, this is your only opportunity to buy these if you're interested. But what I'll also say is, it's not just Poison Rana varsity jacket. These are very warm, genuine leather sleeves, so they'll last 10 times longer than that crappy faux leather that you see on a lot of other varsity jackets. And free shipping and all that sort of stuff. Like $160, I believe. But like I said, free shipping worldwide. And
how do you wash those jackets to the British people? Like,
how do I wash them to the British people?
How did British people wash them? I remember Ben had washed his coat that one time on the Grapple Pod.
Oh yeah.
So just to
Anyway.
clarify, it's the same. Washing it is the same in all countries, not just different in England or anything.
Do you have them? Do you have them like numbered, like a collector? Like these jackets seem like collector's items. Like they're like one of one. Like do you have them like numbered like that? Like for if people buy them, like, oh, I got the 32nd jacket, or oh, this guy's got 4. Like, you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but no, they're not numbered. Just because for keeping costs down, it would cost more to have an individual tag. So there's like an embroidered tag.
Oh, they're beautiful too. That embroidered tag, yeah. Yeah,
it's an embroidered tag, but I was able to keep costs down because I would have to make however many of the same tag. But if the tag had 1 and then the next tag had 2, then I would end up making however many individual tags, kind of thing.
And what about the hot tag?
So no, the hot tag, yeah. So it's all about, like, this is the thing. A lot of these jackets you'll find cost like $300 and whatever, and I tried my hardest to keep the costs way down so that it's the most affordable it can be, but it is the real deal in terms of authentic satisfaction guaranteed. If you don't like it, you can send it back to us for a full refund. Just keep the tag on, not there's like an actual like rip-off tag. Keep that on. And if you get the wrong size, you can exchange it if we still have the size that you want.
Not the Claudio jacket that he wears to the ring with the Death Riders, right? That has all tags on it.
I don't. Like the receipts.
Yes.
Is that what is going on with that jacket? Is that what that is? He's keeping receipts, but I'm like, receipts for what? Like, has anyone been rude to you? Like,
they look like they're rubber stamped too, like from like the 1800s. Those receipts,
like wax stamped. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, the current Jon Moxley AEW is very interesting at the moment. It feels like a bit of a whirlwind. Not really sure what's going on, but I'm still hanging around for it.
You took the words out of my mouth, because obviously we are here to talk about Mox against Brodie Lee, but I would like to talk about some more recent stuff, because we've had Mox win the AEW World title from Bryan Danielson, and now he's running roughshod over the whole company. Just on Dynamite, though, he's not doing Rampage and Collision. It just seems like he's he only wants to.
I wouldn't know.
Take over on a Wednesday. But also recently he did an interview with the New York Post, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought we could touch on in this intro, because he sounded really fired up in it, and he said that everything that's happened in the past in AEW doesn't matter because it's now day 0, and it might not look different now, but it's small steps, and he's going to ensure that it will be different in the future. And he also said that the goal he has going forward are the most ambitious things he's ever attempted. So really interesting there. And then he also noted that he heard someone say backstage, well, it's bottom of the card, it doesn't matter. And, he was disgusted hearing that. He was like, imagine hearing someone say that, like, you're fucking fired. Go work at Sunglasses, or you should be pistol whipped for saying that. And, and that talents haven't been put in a position to succeed due to a lack of prep, framework, and direction. He said, all that is going to change. I mean, you can read the whole thing over at the New York Post. Great interview. Mox sounded really fired up. But thoughts on that one, Brandon? That interview with Mox, he sounded really fired up about changing the company, and obviously interesting that, he might not have named the person, but he's saying like there's people backstage that he wasn't happy with.
I'm sure there's a lot of people backstage that are too comfortable with the way that with the fat contracts and stuff like that. I mean, how many day zeros is this company gonna have? Like, this sounds like 80. This sounds like the 80th day zero for them. But hey, I mean, and they changed the whole takeover story, right? It's now like zeroed in on Orange Cassidy. But I appreciate his creative control, and he's using it. He's using it. He's playing that chip, and I mean, I'm interested so far. So I hope that he follows through on that. Was he Jonathan Good or was he Jon Moxley in that interview? I was just
No,
curious.
it's Jon Moxley. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now was he? Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't Dean Ambrose, but man, these pro wrestlers are schizophrenic with their gimmicks, man.
I mean, he sounded a little bit like Dean Ambrose on the Stone Cold podcast. You know, because it kind of reminded me. It kind of reminded me of that. It was sort of like when it was like, well, why don't you just grab the brass ring? And it's like he clearly kind of had like some PTSD with that whole issue with saying, "Oh, people just bottom of the card, who cares?" or whatever. It's like because that's totally like that totally sounds like a WWE thing where it's like you're at the bottom of the card. We're going to keep you at the bottom of the card. And we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that you're not successful. And if you still succeed despite all of that, then we might, give you a push or whatever, as opposed to, the stories, the bookers and all that sort of stuff need to, actually, they're in control. They can, make any, we'll talk about it on this with Luke Harper and my thoughts and feelings on it. But like, perception is everything. So if you just don't care about the guy at the bottom of the card, then it's not actually up to them to necessarily get over. I'm getting sick of it because in this company, this is actually what is happening. Like the Outrunners are only the Outrunners now, the ones that we know and everybody knows that sells lots of T-shirts and are very popular, and they're only like that because what?
They got rid of my favorite theme they had though. They have a Death Rebel one now.
Well, I'll tell you probably why. Because they got themselves over despite they were just like enhancement. They weren't even, I don't even think they were signed or anything. And their music would have been their indie music that they use. And now it's kind of like, oh, we can't really use you need to have a Mikey Ruckus theme or whatever. Same thing happened with Wheeler Yuta. His music was banging when he first came in, and they quickly had to change that. But yeah, this is the same thing. Like the Outrunners never got a push. They just got themselves to be extremely popular, and then it was like, oh, we should probably do something with them. That's the WWE thing, and I don't know. You're in control of the company. You can make stars. And this ties into the storyline with Mox at the moment in AEW. They have not done a very good job of making enough sympathetic people in the lower to mid card of this company, because look at all these geeks standing backstage waiting for Mox and crew to turn up, and they've got pipes and stuff. Evil Uno. Like, I have an Evil Uno shirt. I quite like the idea of an Evil Uno, but he's been used terribly over the last 5 years. Well, I shouldn't say 5 years. I should say probably, after the Rise of the Dark Order, he's just floundered and done nothing. Yeah. They can't even put him in the fucking video game, even though he's out there promoting it all the time. And I have to feel some sort of sympathy for this character getting the shit beaten out of him by Moxley. I don't even care. Like, and it kind of happened on this last week's Dynamite again. It's just like, oh, JD Drake gets like jumped and thrown out the front. It's like, who are these people? Like, I'm not saying that they need to be, I get it. Your Orange Cassidy's and your Darby Allins, they're kind of like, and the Daniel Garcias are kind of like at the top, but they've done a bad job with Daniel Garcia too. He's just kind of been dancing around for a couple of years. And then, yeah, these people kind of at the bottom of the card who are supposed to be like WCW when the NWO invades, they're just jokes. And so the thing with,
who's their Juventud Guerrero that's gonna
who's getting lawn darted into the side of a building? But I think what Jon Moxley's intentions are with the storyline are good. The problem that I feel is the setup, which takes years. The setup is not there. because I don't care about Alex Reynolds and John Silver. I may have at some point, but they've just become nothing, and now they just reappear. And who else is there? Action Andretti. He came in hot, big pin 1, 2, 3 kid over Chris Jericho, dead, just gone. And then he reappears as somebody that we need to care about, trying to defend this company.
Do you care about the infantry?
Who?
It kind of feels like what was it in TNA, the main event Vafir against what was the TNA faction called? Just TNA. That was all terrible and not built up and not giving it like they should have done.
Was the Fortune?
No, it wasn't Fortune. Who were the TNA lot who were going up against the main event Mafia, and then they just lost every week, and it was just crap.
Team Japan.
No, it wasn't. But anyway, yeah, it's like you say, Dickie. I think Mox has got the right intentions and everything. And if he has got creative control, like Brandon alluded to there, I mean, you would be pulling it on Tony Khan every week if I was him. But yeah, it feels like he's got good intentions, but like you said, they've not built it up enough, and it's just coming across a bit flat and stuff.
They changed it up already. It was like a takeover of the company, and then they switched it up to like it's just a regular feud with Orange Cassidy and whoever.
So when the NWO invaded, right? The thing is, it was like WCW stopped. Feuds that were happening at the time in WCW, they stopped. Because all of a sudden it became an existential crisis for the people in WCW that their jobs, their livelihoods are coming to an end. So it was pretty much at the start WCW versus the NWO and anybody who may defect to the NWO, which, obviously a lot of, people, especially ex-WWF guys, ended up kind of going that way and all that sort of thing. So in this case, your Swerve Stricklands, your MJFs, all these people, your Chris Jerichos need to pick a side. But that's not what's happening. And it is what Brandon is saying. It is just a feud between these small pockets, and you have Swerve doing his thing, doesn't even care. You've got Chris Jericho doing his thing, doesn't even care, whatever. And whatever you want to say about Chris Jericho, it could have been like this thing where he just drops the whole learning tree thing and just goes, fuck, we need to sort this out, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it's like,
I'll get over.
Well, but I mean, but he's probably got creative control too. And he's like, well, I'm not, I've got my own. I've got a 9-month storyline here with Mark Briscoe mapped out. I can't just stop this now. I'm only in month 3, kind of thing. So the unfortunately politics is everywhere and will destroy everything, including wrestling.
It will be interesting to see where they are this time next year. That's for sure. Especially
it'll be interesting where I'll be at next year.
Yeah.
TNA Frontline, Adam Joyce is saying, is that?
Oh, right, there you go. Yeah, TNA Frontline against the main event.
From Adam Joyce, the fucking
Adam
TNA mark.
He's our TNA scholar.
Good to know. So now we talked about some of the modern stuff. We are here to look back at someone who Mox has a long rivalry with, going back years from the Indies, WWE, and then AEW, and we are, of course, talking about the late great Brodie Lee. And they've had tons of matches, tags, singles, but we've just selected 3 of the matches to span the matches they've had during the career. And it's funny to me because it's kind of like these two kind of mirror each other. They both got names doing the Indies on the East Coast, like CZW, Dragon Gate USA, Evolve, etc., etc. They both signed to WWE Developmental as it was changing from SCW to NXT, and then went through main roster in trios, and then had enough of the Fed and went off to pursue pastures new in AEW. And although they were around on the Indies at the same time, they actually didn't have that great deal of matches together. I think there's this one that we're going to talk about from CZW, and then another one from Evolve. But starting with you, Dickie, I mean, were you guys, obviously, sadly, everyone is aware, we sadly lost Brody a few years back now. But were you guys fans of Brodie Lee, or AKA Luke Harper?
Well, again, this is a sad tale for me. Kind of similar. It's on a similar trajectory as the Dean Ambrose type of thing. When I started watching again in 2015, 2016, there was the Wyatt family who was kind of already in the mid card kind of thing. Like, I know they came in with a bit of steam and feuded with Shield and all that sort of stuff, but by then Shield's broken up, Wyatts are just kind of floundering around, and then Luke Harper is just a henchman of this group. Yeah. That's just what I saw when I first turned on WWE again for the first time in 15 years or whatever. And I mean, I didn't dislike the guy at all. I think that he had some pockets that sort of piqued my interest quite a bit. I thought he was quite effective in the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt feud after Randy won the Royal Rumble, and he was he was kind of loosely affiliated with the Wyatts at that point. Randy Orton was, but Luke Harper was the one that was kind of skeptical about Randy's intentions, and I thought that they ended up having a match, and I thought it was very good. And then I believe there was a match with Luke Harper and AJ Styles at some point that I thought was very good. But apart from that, he was saddled in the tag team division quite a bit. He really didn't have that many prominent singles matches from the point in which I started watching. And again, it was kind of like watching a man just kind of go downwards. However, for me, I had already, by the time Brody came into AEW, I had already witnessed the change that happened to Jon Moxley. So I was way more open and optimistic about the revival of somebody leaving WWE and coming over to AEW. And yeah, I thought, again, it was a shame that it happened during the pandemic. Obviously, we never got to see it in front of live crowds and stuff like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed the run that he had, as short as it was, in AEW, and wish that he had more, but glad that he didn't die just being that Luke Harper WWE character to me, sort of thing. Obviously, never seen him in CZW before doing this show.
Yeah, it was good that he had that sort of last, it might have only been for a few months, but good that he'd managed to leave the Fed and get into AEW and sort of get somewhere he actually wanted to be. What about you, Brandon? Were you a fan of Big Rig?
I did dig his Dragon Gate stuff. I loved how he was just a big athletic dude with a great look. And I wasn't so much a big fan of his in WWE with the Wyatts, but I mean the matches were bangers though. Man, that dude can go. It was so impressive. And when he left WWE to go to AEW, he was only scratching the surface of that Brody of the Dark Order leader gig, and I mean, sad.
The exalted one.
The exalted one,
Mr. Brodie Lee.
Yeah, he had so much to do, and to shame what befell him and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, great performer, great talent.
Yeah, because he was mainly known for Dragon Gate USA and then Chikara, wasn't he? And Evolve, and he was around them quite a bit. But shall we get into our first match, which is Mox against Brodie Lee? Great
base as a big man too, man. Incredible.
Oh yeah, big time, definitely. I mean, we'll talk about that in some of these matches as well, because our first one is Mox against Brodie Lee from CZW, 7th of January, 2000.
Wait, say again, please.
CZW, yeah.
It's beautiful.
7th of January 2011, the event was From Small Beginnings Come Great Things at the Asylum Arena in Philadelphia, which is, of course, the ECW arena. CZW decided that it was going to be called the Asylum Arena for when they did shows there. But not much background on this one. I mean, obviously, we've talked quite a bit about Mox in CZW and on the Indies on previous shows. Brodie, like we noted earlier, might have been all over the Indies in the late noughties and early 2010s in places like Evolve and Chikara and stuff, and he was part of that Age of the Fall thing in Ring of Honor, but he didn't actually make that many appearances in CZW. He had a Miracle Violence collection team with Cheech and Cloudy, but they didn't appear that many times. So it's quite an interesting point. Who are Cheech and Cloudy, Brandon? Were they people that you were aware of?
I thought you said Cheech and Chong.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's what they were going for. Yeah, but Cheech and Cloudy.
And Cloudy, was she the one that came? Was that the one that was she in WWE when Sunny was also in WWE? Who was? Isn't there a Cloudy and a Sunny? And Cloudy was a big steroided woman.
I don't know what you're on about, I'm afraid.
Right, someone must know in the chat.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. So,
Can anyone hear me?
but yeah, it is an interesting point here in Mox's career because he's on his second heavyweight championship run in CZW. He does lose the belt to Robert Anthony the next month, and then he's off to WWE, and Brodie follows him there a year later. But yeah, it's an interesting point in Mox's career because we've talked about the interviews he did before, and he'd had enough of the indies and the so-called like smart fans in the crowd, annoying him and stuff, and that's why he was, had enough and wanted to be off to WWE. But into the match itself, because we've got a topless Mox here with the bootcut jeans, which I know you're a fan of, Brandon. He loves the bootcut jean, doesn't he, old Moxley? And it's a weird one because we kind of have a walk and brawl with Mox using chairs, and then Brodie's chopping Mox at the post and putting Mox through a table. And the main thing you notice straight away is that the crowd doesn't give a fuck about this match. This is like the main event of the show. Mox is the champion. He's well established in CZW. And all you hear is people chattering, barely any reaction to the spots. The other CZW matches we've watched from Mox get a great reaction. He's the champion here, but nobody really cares. I don't know, perhaps because Brodie's not a regular for the company and they just know that Mox is going to win, or it had been a long card or whatever. But I don't know, was it just me, Dickie, but the crowd just didn't seem to give a shit about this match?
I didn't really notice, to be honest, but I think it may have been like a mind fuck thing because, of course, there's another match that we watch in this where the crowd also doesn't give a fuck because they don't exist. So it's kind of like they do still seem far more engaged than another match that we watched in this. But I mean, I don't know. I felt like. I felt that there were a lot of problems with this match, to be honest. As much as I actually enjoyed it, I thought that, they weren't selling very much.
No.
And I just don't know if it was something wrong with the crowd and they just started, not really giving a fuck and they were just, going through the moves or something. Maybe there was something going on with some it's like the crowd, like you said, they don't care about Brodie, or they just think this is a nothing match. It's hard to know at the time without context. But yeah, like I said, there were some gnarly spots in this match which I really liked, and then guys would just stand right up and go to the next move, and I was like, yep. What the fuck? Anyway.
I suppose that's CZW for you. A lot of wrestlers were into that, weren't they? Selling in big spots and stuff that. But
I don't want to skip ahead. But I mean, this table spot with Moxley coming off the apron.
Yeah.
That was gnarly looking. The way that he landed on that, he looked like he looked like Homer Simpson when he bent over backwards on the fire the fire extinguisher thing.
Yeah.
But then like 2 seconds later, he's not selling his back or anything like that. Like it looked like he broke his back on this thing, the way that he landed awkwardly. No, and again, I don't want to skip ahead, but just like the finish of the match. 1, 2, 3. Brodie sits right up, gets up, leaves. I was like, why do people do this? It's like you were just pinned for 3 seconds. You couldn't move. That's the reason that you lost. And then as soon as the bell rings, you just sit up. Like nothing happened. Not sit up gingerly, just woof, get up. And it's just funny. Anyway, go on.
Well, it's like you said, there are some big spots in this, and they are doing everything they can to try and get the crowd into it. So perhaps it might be the no-selling they do, because we get, Mox drop kicks a chair into Brodie Lee, and it's what would become known as the dirty deeds into the chair, and they trade blows. They go around the outside. Mox is trying to bite him and get some blood off him. People suplex onto the floors, and then we even get Mox slapping on a figure four, which seems to be a favorite of his in these CZW death matches that we've watched. Mox hits a superplex from the top row. Brodie hits a choke slam, and calls for some glass to be brought from the back, and then Mox jumps on Brodie's back and then inevitably gets a back body dropped into the glass. This is when we get the infamous CZW air horn. That's the one time they get the air horn in the match when Mox takes a back bump through the glass. And I'm sure there might be even a boring chant at one point. And Mox's back's bleeding. Brodie sets up a table with some thumbtacks, and Mox reverses and powerbombs Brodie through it for the win. So quite a short match. It's only about sort of like 10 to 11 minutes long. And like Dickie noted there are some big spots in it, a lot of no selling. And it just, for me, it's what's fascinating about this one is the crowd reaction. So Brandon, were you a fan of this match compared to the other sort of CZW Mox matches that we've watched?
Brandon has left the building.
No, I'd not seen him leave. Oh, he must have.
I mean, he's not on my screen, so I'm assuming that he's not here.
So anyway, Dickie, as a whole, what did you think about this match while we wait for Brandon to come back?
So I just thought it was okay. I will put it like this. I actually enjoyed it, probably because it wasn't, incredibly long or something. Like 10, 11 minutes of a match is not bad time for me. It's probably like the best for my attention span. But it did sort of seem like they tried to cram in a little bit too much. And like for me, when I say like the no selling, I don't mean the good kind of no selling. I mean the fact that like, you get thrown weirdly through a table so that your back is like bending backwards and stuff. You sort of should be like kind of walking around, sort of selling that part for a while. But it was like nothing. You could fast forward a minute and not know anything that happened to him. And so, like, there was also some weird stuff at the start with like they looked like they were taking like chair shots and stuff that were like really soft. I think Moxley went, and this was like right at the start,
point, yeah,
over the back of Brodie, but it was like really soft, and it was like okay. And then there was like this side Russian leg sweep into the barrier that was just like the weakest looking thing. Like I almost felt like the way that they shot it looked like he missed it or something, but it was very, very strange. But then it kind of did pick up, obviously you had a lot more, the going through the glass. And then the second table bump with the tacks on it and stuff was also like really impressive, the way that it all kind of visually happened and stuff like that. So, I don't want to say it was like there was a lot of confusing things about this match. I don't want to say it was like the best match or whatever, but I highly enjoyed it. I tend to seem like I like a lot of the CCW stuff for someone who didn't really watch it. Maybe that's why they've now become a WWE feeder system with a WWE ID talent coming from the CCW.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've certainly got plenty of wrestlers from there over the years, so maybe that's it. 'Cause it's certainly, they're not drawing crowds anymore like they were for this event. I mean, there were quite a few people in the old ECW arena, but certainly these days they're not during, nowhere near that amount anymore. But yeah, certainly plenty of wrestlers have come there to WWE over the years. But yeah, I noticed that at the start as well, and that made me think perhaps that's why the crowd weren't giving them anything, because I mean, Mox sometimes hasn't got the best of punches at the best of times, and these were really weak punches. And then, like you said, with the chair shots and stuff, and by the end of the match, they sort of turned it around and everything looked a bit stiffer. I don't know. It just seemed, like you said, it was a weird match. Yeah, it seemed a bit awkward at the start, and they didn't quite know how to get it going. And I think the crowd reaction was a big part of that as well, because there was even a point where like Brody was looking into the crowd as if to go, "What more do you want? I've just fucking slammed a guy through a sheet of glass." But for all we know, they might have watched 12 matches where there was barbed wire and glass and thumbtacks and everything before this. So
this is it. How many matches in the future, or how many podcasts in the future will randomly pick even like an AEW or an AEW match that happened after a Will Ospreay match and something, and be like, why don't people give a shit about this match or something? And it's because they probably just saw what might have been the best match they've ever seen in their entire lives, and now the crowd is just kind of like deflated watching it. So context is everything. Who knows? But I it's definitely not the worst match that I've ever seen. Definitely not even close. So I don't know.
It's funny seeing it and definitely comparing and contrasting this one with the last match from AEW that we're going to be talking about, because they seem a lot more like in tune with each other. Because obviously they've wrestled loads in WWE by that point. So, well, yeah, certainly an interesting one to go back and look back on. Moxley's in that, he's kind of checked out at that point. I think by that point he probably knows that he's done with the Indies and he's off to FCW/NXT. So yeah, just an interesting match to look back on as we go into the second one, which is from WWE, and it's Dean Ambrose against Luke Harper from Extreme Rules 2015, which was on April the 26th at the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois. And obviously we talked a couple of shows ago about the year prior to this in 2014 that Ambrose had broke off from the Shield. That was also the same year that Harper had broken off from the Wyatts in 2014 also. So it's interesting that, I was talking about the parallels the careers had taken. They both sort of went singles in the same year in WWE as well. But jumping to this match and 2015, and both the lead into this match was they were both involved in the 7-man ladder match at WrestleMania 31 for the IC belt, and Daniel Bryan won that match, but it kickstarted the feud between Luke and Dean leading into Extreme Rules, and there was another big bump in that one. Took some big bumps in the last match. The WrestleMania ladder match was Harper powerbombing Ambrose from the ring to the floor through a ladder, and I was reading an interview with Mox, and he even said they devised that one, to make the highlight reel, and it worked because it was in like the WWE highlights for like the next few months and stuff. But yeah, it's certainly interesting going into this one that they're both kind of treading water as singles. I think Ambrose is getting on a lot better than Harper at this point, because I mean he's been in the Authority, so like treading water. He had a bit of an IC title run where he lost it to the Miz and stuff like that. Dolph Ziggler. So yeah, he's kind of not where Mox is at this point in his career. But getting into the match itself, and this is certainly a very unique match. It kicks off the pay-per-view. It's a Chicago street fight, because of course they are in Chicago. Mox gets a big reaction coming out here. I mean, Brandy's doing the ring announcing. I knew she'd done NXT, but I couldn't remember her doing WWE pay-per-views. But yeah, we've got Brandy doing the ring announcing here.
Eden Styles.
Indeed. And Mox is in black vest and the bootcut jeans. Harper's entrance music is certainly something, isn't he? I mean, he seems to have lots of eyes in his Titantron. That was the thing that I noticed about his entrance. It's very weird. It was like he had a set of eyes, and then also they'd made like a big blob of all these eyes looking down. I was like, no wonder this guy was like treading water, because the entrance is just terrible.
I don't think I'd ever heard this music before. But I mean, then again, I didn't realize that he was ever not in the Wyatts. I mean, at this point, obviously, I know after, Bludgeon Brothers and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's weird. This is a weird point in time for me because I technically had come back and started watching WWE again because I watched that WrestleMania that you referred to. That was the one at Levi's Stadium, right? The WrestleMania 31.
Mainly in daylight, wasn't it? I remember from
at the start, the Undertaker's entrance in daylight was something. The Royal Rumble was like the first thing that I'd come back to and watch. That was earlier this year. That was the last man standing match with Kevin Owens, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm on track for this, but anyway. Nevertheless, the problem is that I was definitely not watching Raw because I only got the WWE Network. So I was probably only maybe dipping into some of the pay-per-views because they were free. I essentially were part of the subscription, but I wasn't going to pay TV to watch Raw. And at the time, wasn't really legally finding it. I just didn't care enough about that. So I really I don't really know all this sort of stuff, what happened. I think I started to really come back in around Survivor Series of this year, which was Dean versus Roman in the main event as they tried to crown a new champion after Seth got injured. So yeah, I didn't realize that Harper was not in the Wyatts. All I really remember him was being in the Wyatts. Even though
I think a lot of people do,
yeah, watching around this time. But yeah, him having his own entrance music, and I was like, oh, geez, it's like even those other matches that I referenced against Randy and AJ, I don't feel like he used this music. I mean, just give him the goddamn Wyatt's music. You pay for it because it's a licensed track. You might as well just give it to all of them, sort of thing. But yeah, it was the whole thing was quite fascinating, including commentary as per usual. That's what I enjoy about watching these all WWE matches, Martin.
Yeah, because we've got Cole, JBL, and King. I mean, got to think of like a worse trio. What a fucking that's rough. That's proper rough when these three are on commentary.
Jerry the King Lawler says if you stared into Luke Harper's eyes, you could see the back of his head. He must have just had that in his pocket and he's probably used it a lot, sort of thing. But like, I hate the one-liners, and maybe this is because Eric Marcotte made me watch Rowdy Roddy Piper versus Jerry the King Lawler from King of the Ring 1994 last night.
Oh wow!
And I'm very annoyed with that. And the one-liners I heard from the promo package leading up to it was atrocious. This man has never changed, and I very much hope that he stays retired from all wrestling, not just performing, but also commentary. Goodness.
Wow, that's a throwback, that match. I remember watching, even as a kid, everyone was like, oh God, Piper against Lawler. I mean,
it was part of the new generation of WWE.
Yeah, exactly. As kids, we were like, what the hell is this shit? We're all into Bret Hart and that, yeah.
That was the month that Hogan signed with WCW, so they freaked out, and when our new generation isn't working, bring in bring Piper back and have him feud with Jerry Lawler to pull a number or something. And I was like, these guys.
Bob Backlund was around at that time as well, weren't he?
Of course.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, back onto the match here. Harper's got dreadful music, and they open up hot. Lots of heavy brawling around the ring. Harper gets thrown into the ring steps and pulls out some chairs and a kendo stick and goes to town. This is Moxley going to town on Harper in the ring with the stick. He really starts hammering him with the kendo stick, and then Brody gets the upper hand and suplexes Mox onto one of the chairs that has been thrown into the ring. He then gets revenge on Mox with the kendo stick and hammers him over the back, and then slingshots Mox into a chair that he set up in the corner. And crowd starts chanting, "Let's go, Ambrose!" as he turns the tide and slams Harper onto a chair, and then DDT from the top rope, followed by an elbow drop from the top from Mox, and then he goes to the Dirty Deeds, which is met with a boot to the face. He throws Brody to the outside and then hits him with a kendo stick as he brawl to the back, and Brody gets thrown into a bunch of production equipment. We've all seen the WWE brawls; they're all very similar, aren't they? He gets thrown into a bunch of cases that have got like media equipment in and things, and Mox then finds some massive like plastic piping. He just throws that at Brody, and then Brody randomly finds a car that's got the keys in that looks like it's ready to go. And I think it was a Yukon or a Escalade or something like that. I'm sure if Brandon was here, he'd be able to tell us what type of car it was. And then drives off as Mox jumps through the window, and the crowd's booing this. We go back to the commentators, and Cole says that there are no countouts, and he just assumes the match is going to continue. Obviously, we're in Chicago in 2015, so the crowd don't know what to do, so they start chanting CM Punk. Then cut to the back. Triple H tells Kane he needs to find Harper and Ambrose, and that's just halfway through the match here. I mean, had you seen this one before, Dickie? If I have,
no.
I don't remember that I'd seen this before at all.
So a couple of things. As soon as it drives off, okay, right, the referee is running behind the car that's speeding off, which is funny. Yeah. And the cameraman says, okay. We come back to Cole, JBL, and Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler specifically says, well, they've got to come back at some point because pinfalls can only happen in the ring. And he's right. It's not a Falls Count Anywhere match. It's a Chicago street fight. The match has to end within the ring, and there's no count outs or anything like that. And then JBL immediately says, we saw the referee run. The match could end at any time, and we wouldn't even know it. So you just said that it has to end in the ring. So like these fucking guys are useless. And anyway, so there was that. The second thing was,
Vince was screaming in their ears at that point, going, God damn it, the ref followed them in the car.
God damn it, why are they chanting CM Punk? So the other thing too, Martin, which is, it's always just like the life and times of Dickie being annoyed by things. So in here in Australia, we don't have the WWE network anymore. We got peacocked by a service called Binge. But it's still like the WWE. It's like Peacock, basically. We don't have timestamps on the shows, though.
Right.
So I just knew I could have looked it up, but whatever. It's like I'll find the match or whatever. And then I was like, oh great, fantastic! It's the first match on the card, so I don't even need to bother like looking for it. It's like thank goodness, thank you, Martin. Then I watched the match. And then they just drive off, and I'm like, fuck. Like, this match is going to end somewhere in this car. Now I've got to try and find it. And it's like, and then Dolph Ziggler comes out, and I'm like, I'm not watching this. Like, what happens if they come back during this Dolph Ziggler match? No. And then, luckily, and you'll, maybe I'll just do the bit, it's Renee interviewing the New Day, and I thought this was awesome foreshadowing to what's happening to Renee in AEW at the moment. Have you noticed this? Almost every single backstage segment with Renee interviewing somebody leads to what the OSW review guys would say is a Pearl Harboring, which is just someone just crashing in, or the person that is feuding with whoever Renee's talking to just flies into shot and attacks that person, and Renee's like, and has to leave. This happens almost weekly. Sometimes this happens multiple times in a single AEW episode. And so I just thought it was great that here we are watching this. Renee's there talking to the New Day, and then all of a sudden, the fucking Escalade comes back and just like drives into shot, like almost killing everyone. And Renee's like, again. And I was just like, this is perfect.
I bet that happened so many times through in WWE, and I bet they were just like, "Oh, if you used to do it in WWE, let's have a do it in AEW." No, I had not noticed that, but I'll not be able not to notice this Pearl Harboring of Renee.
Every time she's interviewing Hangman, it's just like, okay, someone's coming to beat up Hangman. Get out of the way, Renee. Like, it's just goodness. Oh, by the way, Chris Elliott also pointed out this is the time where Eric Rowan, his gimmick was the vintner. And I do remember that he was a wine maker.
What? I don't remember this at all.
So what's going on? Was Bray Wyatt injured? Is that what happened? And they were just trying to find out what to do with the other two guys?
Or maybe no, I think they were trying to make them all like solo people.
Right. So we
they?
had a vintner and we had Luke Harper with eyes sort of thing. But yeah, I do remember at least the vintner thing. But no, I don't really remember Luke Harper being his own kind of guy.
Yeah, because of course I look at Rowan and I think, oh, he's a natural guy who would own a vineyard in California or something. Yeah, that's naturally I'd look at that. But yeah, so yeah, sorry, I would have told you. I didn't realize. Obviously, on the network that we've got here in the UK, you just flick it up and it comes into chapters and it tells you which matches and which segments coming up next. Because after that, we got Sheamus against Dolph Ziggler in a Kiss Me Arse match, and Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. Who can remember that tag team versus the New Day, and then the New Day win, and then this is when they're being interviewed backstage by Renee, and like you noted there, the car comes crashing back in. Harper falls out of the car as the New Day laugh at him, and then Mox dives off the top of the car and lands on the New Day. So I guess it kind of served them right for laughing. Then they carry on brawling around the backstage area and into the arena. Mox comes flying off the stage, which the camera crew completely miss, which was absolutely terrible. You even see him sneak off on to go something, and you think the camera crew will be like, "Ooh, where's he gone? We best keep camera on him." But no, they didn't. And then in the ring, they do the Terry Funk thing, and they throw a bunch of chairs in, and Mox is powerbombed onto the chairs, but kicks out at 2. Brody covers him in chairs and goes to the top, but Mox makes a miraculous recovery, throws him off, hits the Dirty Deeds in the chairs, and wins. So, such an odd match to review. Only about, like the first match I reviewed, only about 10, 11 minutes of action, and they were definitely going for something slightly different, taking off in the car. I mean, it's a shame we didn't get the Gold Dust Roddy Piper WrestleMania 12 thing with the helicopter following them around in this car, but definitely an odd one. It certainly, I mean, the action for what it was decent, but as far as a match goes, yeah, they were trying something different. Didn't quite work for me. I feel like if you're going to do something that wacky, at least go full hog with it and follow them around the streets of Chicago in this car, or at least do some kind of pre-tape or something. But yeah.
Because someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the big problem with that Piper Goldust match was the fact that they kept cutting to the aerial footage of the Bronco. Yeah, it wasn't a white Bronco that they were in this time, but they kept cutting to it during other people's matches. And that's kind of one of the, it's sort of like you sort of want to be like, oh, well, the show's got to go on, but there's this other match happening in a shopping mall like 4 blocks away. You know, let's cut to that. But then it's just like you're really doing damage to the actual match that's happening at the time, where you're really kind of telling your audience, don't give a fuck about this, you know, because we've got this other thing going on. But I feel like I've seen versions of this definitely like in the Attitude Era with like those hardcore matches and stuff that would, you know, all of a sudden Bob Holly's in the Mississippi River or something. I don't know if that was kind of similar or whatever, but it kind of had that vibe to it, so I didn't really mind it, but I thought it's just sort of hilarious that I think the crowd immediately just assumed that was the end of the match because they're conditioned the WWE doing stupid fucking finishes like that where was it a Survivor Series or a SummerSlam? It was Triple H versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the match ended backstage with Stone Cold lifting up Triple H while he was in a car, used a forklift to lift him up and tipped it over, and it fell. Triple H. This is in a match. There's a match that's happening.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Stone Cold just got out of the forklift, walked away, and that was the end of the pay-per-view. Like they're conditioned to these stupid finishes. So I think the crowd booed because they were just like, is that it? Like, that's it? Which, of course, it wasn't. And Survivor Series 2000. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. But I mean, I don't really mind stuff like that because I mean, I'm not in the audience. Maybe feel a little differently. Maybe I'd feel a little differently at the time, but knowing that they were going to come back. Though, to be fair, though, there was a House of Horrors match the following year, I believe, between Randy and Bray that kind of did the same thing. It was like a cinematic match that ended
the one
in
where
the
he
ring.
teleported through the fridge in that house during like COVID era. Yeah.
It wasn't during. No, it wasn't during. No. This was.
There's been so many bad matches between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. It's hard to they all just mold into one, I guess.
This may have been 2007. It was Jinder was the champion or about to be the champion.
Right.
Randy was it was 2016. Yeah, it was the follow-on feud from WrestleMania maggots on the canvas with Bray and Randy. And then, Randy won and then would eventually drop it to Jinder and all that sort of stuff. But it happened like it was a cinematic match that then eventually happened into the ring with people there and stuff like that. So, but that was awful. Like what I'm trying to say is that was shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a really, I would just put this one that we watched in the category of, because it's WWE and you have to like weight it differently. I didn't mind it. All the offensive things that WWE has fed us over the years, I thought this one was fine. Yeah,
I think that's a fair review. Yeah, it was just fine, wasn't it? It wasn't offensive. It didn't go on too long, and kind of like, apart from the confusion with us not remembering it. I must have watched it around the time, but yeah, just not remembering it, and the weird finish to it, and like the match in 2 parts sort of thing. But yeah, wouldn't recommend anyone go out and see it. But yeah, it was fine match between them. Because the best one for me out of the 3 is the one we're about to talk about now, which is Jon Moxley against Brodie Lee from AEW Double or Nothing 2020 at Daly's place that everyone became very, very familiar with in 2020 on May 23rd. So we have talked about Mox leaving WWE and joining AEW in 2019, and obviously he won his first AEW heavyweight title at Revolution in February of 2020, beating Chris Jericho, and then obviously all the world changed with the coronavirus pandemic and crowds weren't allowed at wrestling. Mox only wrestled, I think, about 3 or 4 times leading into this match with Brodie Lee. And much like Moxley before him, Lee had become disillusioned with WWE and in 2019 requested his release. But of course, typical WWE, they denied it. And even though his contract was up in November of 2019, they added another 6 months onto it due to time missed through injuries. But luckily for Brodie, he did manage to get his release in December of 2019. But I mean, they were doing those sort of dick moves, and they probably still do them, don't they? The way that it's like, oh, well, you still owe us all this time for the time off you were off injured. So yeah, if you are going to...
AEW does those dick moves now too, which is kind of like great.
No, it's not great, is it? Very unfair, especially when you're out injured and stuff. But Brodie, following a bunch of video packages, talking about the Exalted One was coming in to lead the Dark Order. He debuted for AEW in March as the new leader of the Dark Order. And sadly for Brodie, this was right at the start of Empty Arena Wrestling due to COVID.
This was the first episode.
Oh, was it? Oh, I was trying to wonder. I was looking through it and I was thinking, like, I do remember it was right around the time that they started doing Empty Arena stuff. So it was the first episode they'd done.
It was either the first or the second. This was supposed to be at the Rochester Arena because, of course, Brodie is from there. It was either the first or second. And because, of course, Matt Hardy also came in. He was rumored as well to be the Exalted One. So if you told me both those things happen on the same episode, I wouldn't be surprised. But bit of a shame. But I really, really thought that this was masterful stuff from AEW. This is back in the day where they were really good at misdirection. Let's put it that way. And I don't know why they're not very good at it anymore, whether it's just because information is so easily leaked out. But, they were doing lots of funky stuff leading up to this. You had Raven just like sitting in the crowd.
Oh,
and
yeah.
people were like, oh, maybe he's the Exalted One. And then there was like this backstage vignette of the Exalted One thing where it was, I think it was just like the desk or something. It was something where it was maybe like the point of view or, talking to Evil Uno or whatever, but there was like a tennis racket and they were like, is it Jim Cornette, and stuff like that. And I feel like all of that was very intentional. Like they
had the drone as well, didn't they? They just had the drone above the arena, and that's why everyone thought it was going to be Matt Hardy, didn't they?
And, the Matt Hardy thing as well. And I think what they ended up doing quite smartly was pretty much locking it in that it was like, like people knew that it was either going to be Brodie Lee or Matt Hardy, but no one, it was only maybe like one or two people actually knew, kind of like kept it really locked down, and therefore it was very hard for it to come out. And so it wasn't like a huge surprise because they were they were basically telling you, hey, is going to be someone, the Exalted One's coming, right? Over and over again, week after week. And when it was Brodie Lee, it wasn't like, oh my God, you kind of half expected it.
Yeah.
But when it happened, it was kind of like, wow, I'm very interested in this now. And these days you would just probably be like, well, like we do now, Evil Uno's a joke and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were. And that was kind of the genius of it. He was coming in because he's the leader of this like nationwide cult. And, like Alex Reynolds and Evil Uno and John Silver are just this like small branch of it. And he's coming in because they suck, basically. He's coming in to right the ship. And it turns out the Dark Order cult is super serious. And these guys are letting the brand down. So Mr. Brodie Lee has come in to, sort it all out and instantly gave the whole thing, a lot of credibility. And I think he did an incredible job. He was all of a sudden, as we sort of say, it's like, oh, he was allowed to talk and not just grunt. And not just grunt, or as we've heard in a lot of like interviews and stuff, told because he's a swamp creature in the Wyatts that he has to have a southern accent. He's from New York, all right? Like, and he's got told that he's gonna have like this southern, Alabama, Louisiana accent or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he comes in and, cuts this promo, obviously pre-recorded. And I just thought it was fantastic, just the way it was shot and everything, but just also he had this, he just had this thing about him that we'd never, well, I don't say that I'd never seen before in WWE. And because I'd seen Mox do the same thing, the previous year, I was like, all right, let's go. And he never disappointed. I thought this match that we're about to discuss, maybe I was disappointed in the timing of it.
Right.
Because, this was basically Brodie Lee's first proper match.
Yeah, it was his first big pay-per-view match, definitely.
It was first, but it was anybody else that he had faced before then was like Marco Stunt, and just some other guys. And it was kind of like it's just unfortunate because you sort of, you've brought in this big monster heel and you're just kind of feeding him immediately to the babyface champion who's still relatively new. It just kind of telegraphed that it wasn't, it just telegraphed that it was just a holdover match, for Mox kind of thing, which I thought was a bit of a waste. But like, as we know, if you watched AEW at the time, Brodie Lee's biggest feud was, of course, with Cody in the TNT division. So I sort of thought that, you know what, if they knew that's what was going to happen, it was like, okay, push him to the top, have him lose, and then he can come down and be a monster heel in the kind of mid-card division, I suppose, with Cody. So I guess it kind of worked, but it was just a little disappointing. It's not like I went into this match thinking that there was going to be any other result than what there was.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's certainly a lot of people who are in WWE and people go, oh, well, they're a lot more talented and, you know, they've got a lot more to give. And then sometimes they come over to other companies and you're like, well, actually, that was all they had. But Brody and certainly Mox were definitely two of the people who you were like, oh, these are really talented people who've got a lot more to give. And I think Brody was really proving that when he came to AEW, that, like you said, with the promos and then just the aura about him being the leader of sort of like Dark Order and stuff, he definitely was one of those people who had a lot more to give than what WWE were letting him do, rather than just being a bust. Because yeah, you like you said, he had that undefeated streak when he first came in. I felt the build for the match as well was a bit cold as well. Obviously, you know, they were limited in what they could do because it was COVID, empty arena wrestling. It was those shows where you had sort of like Big Swole and Prince Nana and the like ran, you know, doing the crowd noise round the ring, because it was kind of Mox had done like put a bounty on himself, gone, oh, I'm the champion, you know, come and get me sort of thing. And Brody came out and hammered him and accepted his challenge. And we also had 10 from the Dark Order stealing the belt and giving it to Brody and then we had Brody tweeting out, you know, possession is 9/10 of the law and things like that. It all seemed a bit thrown together with the title belt getting stolen and stuff like that. It felt a bit lazy in terms of that, but I guess, like I said, it might have been hard putting stuff together when they were in that COVID period. Have you been back and rewatched any of this stuff? I remember us all enjoying it because we were all stuck indoors and no one could really go out and see their friends and stuff. And so AEW was that good thing that you could watch most weeks, weren't it? But have you actually been back and watched any of this empty arena wrestling?
Have I gone back and watched empty arena wrestling? Now, I will give AEW some credit. It was far and beyond better than what WWE was doing, just in terms of atmosphere. You know, the Thunderdome was awful, you know, and AEW at least had their roster making some noise, and it was real noise. The canned noise on the WWE, I couldn't stand. But to answer your question, no, there will always be some things I really liked about the pandemic, mostly the isolation. Because you know what? Since the pandemic, I have moved out into the middle of nowhere on a big property where no one can get to me because of that love that I had. But wrestling wasn't one of them. You know, I still watched every week because, you know, what else was there to do? But I very much was pining for crowds to come back. But I think it was probably later in the year when I think like Sting came in a bit later in the year. I think. That's when I kind of, if I was to go back and watch empty arena wrestling or pandemic wrestling in AEW, that's probably my starting point. It was also kind of weird because I was back at work at that time, like in Australia, like life had just returned to normal by then. But the rest of like America and the UK was still very much deep in shit. So I was very much just wanting to pretend like it was normal because everything else in my life was normal at that time. So yeah, around that time, Moxley losing to Omega, going into like the Revolution pay-per-view for that, you know, that's the sort of time that I remember quite a bit and would go back and watch, but no, not this stuff. But I remember quite a lot of it. That's for sure.
One thing I didn't remember from this show was the before we get into this was the co-main event, weren't it? This was like the lead.
They said one of two main events or something, right?
Yeah. But also on the
remember what was
show,
that one.
I'd totally forgotten about. They had Cody against Lance Archer with Mike Tyson as the guest
Oh yeah, okay.
enforcer. I'd completely forgotten about that one.
Where they cut to Mike Tyson and he was asleep.
Yawning, yeah.
Yawning,
yawning, or he's asleep.
He was yawning, yeah.
Old man at that time, weren't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit funny because it was like, oh, and here's the belt. By the way, it's not finished because pandemic.
Yeah.
Something was like, okay, sure. But that was strange, but would eventually lead to, what I talked about before, which was kind of far better, which was Cody versus Brody. And sort of tied in with that unfinished belt as well. But we're not here to talk about that.
No, because Mox makes his entrance from the back of the building, doesn't he? Looks awesome coming out with the jacket on and everything. He's got no title because obviously Brody's stolen it from him, and he's wearing those blue combat jeans that he wore in his first few years in AEW. I was never a big fan of those. They were this like skinny combat type blue camo jeans. Yeah, I was never a fan of those. And
what's he wearing at the moment? He's still wearing these they look like dress pants.
Like the like green khaki.
Yeah, what the fuck? God bless the man, but his choice in attire over the years will be looked at not as bad as Shawn Michaels for sure, but it will still be looked at as kind of puzzling. It's like, when he left WWE and went to New Japan and was wearing he got the quads out. I was like, all right, that's great. But then since then, he just can't seem to make his mind up, I guess. So.
Perhaps he's skipping leg day more than he was post WWE. Who knows?
Well, he's got a bit of a hip issue. I read in that New York Post.
Yeah, that's
article.
it. Yeah,
rehabbing his hip, so maybe the legs aren't looking as full as normal.
Chris Elliott's put in the chat that he was wearing jeans with holes in this week. So there you go. Going back to the 80s there, throwback jeans with holes in. Dasha Gonzalez is doing the MCing. She was obviously released by AEW earlier this year, I think in April. And we have they start clubbing each other all around the ring. So I think Brody's quite on top for most of this match. We have a lot of big spots. Mox is suplexed onto the guardrail, which JR called a piece of wood or something. And I was like, no, that's blatantly the guardrail. It's he's just pulled it over. And Brody, even Mox is trying to set something up in a corner, and Brody drop kicks him in the balls. It seemed to even showed you on the replay, and I think he sort of missed his stomach and he went full balls to the wall, drop kicking Mox in the balls. And then Brody's backdrop through a table. Mox gets suplexed through they have this interesting set piece because it's double or nothing. So they have a bunch of sort of massive playing cards set up. Mox gets suplexed through one of them, and then Brody's really using his size against Mox, so they're trying to get him over as sort of this dominant monster. And Mox hits a paradigm shift on Brody through the entranceway. They were quite fond of doing that around this time, weren't they? They had a bit of the entranceway, and that was obviously weaker than the other. And so I remember was it Jericho went off the top of a cage through that as well. They were going through the entranceway quite a bit at that time. And this fires Mox up going through the entranceway, back in the ring, hits 2 more paradigm shifts, but only gets 2. And then he resorts to a rear naked chokehold as Brody submits. So, like I said, Brody on top for a lot of this match. I think they were trying to get over the size advantage over Moxley and try to get him over as this monster. But obviously, he ended up submitting to a rear naked chokehold. We also got in this match a Gotch pile driver that was actually hit, because obviously you've seen a lot of Minoru Suzuki matches where you don't quite get the Gotch pile driver locked in. But yeah, Mox hit the Gotch pile driver in this one. But I think out of the 3, this was probably my favorite one. I like the sort of story they were doing around Brody being the more dominant guy, and there was some sort of big stunts in it. And I think they worked a lot better, certainly, than when they were working in CZW, Dickie.
Yeah, I mean, this is their final form after all these all these years, and as we've documented. They've come together sort of in all these different promotions and so forth. So it's just the pandemic thing is just such a shame. I don't disagree with you. It's my favorite out of all of them. It makes me really sad, to be honest. And it's probably, I've been dreading doing this show because, really, I was so excited about what Brodie would be able to do. And, one of the things that we didn't really talk about as well, that he didn't really look that big in WWE to me, because when he was in the Wyatts, he was the second biggest guy because you had Rowan. And then it was like, and then he would have matches with people who are also, because it's the land of the giants, and it just kind of gets normalized. And then when he comes into AEW, and he's standing next to John Silver, it's like, this fucking guy is huge. And, AEW, people are like, well, AEW is the land of the small people. No, it's the land of people of all different sizes. And therefore, you have better context when somebody is really, really big. It's kind of like Jake Hager as well, even though I hate to invoke that person's name on this show. But and another one, like in WWE, he just looked like a guy. And you didn't really realize how tall these people are, sort of thing. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame because I do think that Brodie Lee would be a main event. He was going to be, well, he obviously main evented this show, but if he hadn't have died, like he was going to be a main eventer. Like he would be in the mix right now with what's happening on AEW. He would be a much needed, like they lost somebody who I think was crucial to their future. Not to say that, they can't survive without him, but, he came in at a time that, they were doing a really good job building these people.
Yeah.
When you come in now, like, God bless Ricochet, and God bless Bobby Lashley, these people who are coming in, but I just don't feel like they're going to be building them in the same way Brodie was
no.
built. So, are we going to talk about this next thing? I didn't watch I couldn't watch the video again.
Oh, the Moxley video. No, we don't have to talk about that. I mean, before we,
I do have to read the book.
Oh, definitely.
But we'll talk about the video. So, like, obviously, I've seen it. Like, I just couldn't bring myself to watch it again.
No.
But yeah, obviously, in the tribute, can you give us a rundown of what Moxley said in the tribute video?
Well, it was similar to what he said in the book, though, wasn't it?
Well, let's get into it.
Well, before we get into that, would you say they were good opponents for each other? Obviously, there's a lot of respect there for each other, but in terms of like wrestling opponents, I mean, they were certainly had decent matches, but I thought they had better matches with other people.
I thought they clicked really well in that Extreme Rules match. That was the one that I kind of felt like it was like their CZW match, but they'd tidied up their things. When I talked about like not selling and, they actually hit each other properly with chairs and all this sort of stuff, it was like lay it in, all that sort of stuff. So you could see the progression, and definitely in the AEW match as well. It's just hard to compare a pandemic match to a non-pandemic match in some ways, even though you shouldn't. Like, you could just watch all three of them on mute, and then you can sort of watch them. But it just makes me sad because I'm just like, I know they would have had another match when crowds came back, but it just wasn't to be. But you know, I think that you could see, like, this is one of the perfect things, that they got way better with working with each other, and it was very, very good at the end.
Yeah, because of course we did sadly lose Brodie Lee on the 26th of December 2020 at just 41 years of age, and Dickie's about to read the passage from Mox's book about Brodie, but obviously such a young age, and it did knock everyone for six, didn't it? And the tributes that sort of like came after that as well.
Yep. Brodie died today. Details are still sketchy. All we have known for the last 6 or 7 weeks is that he was in hospital on life support and might need a lung transplant. Today is December 26th. I can't imagine what kind of Christmas it was for Amanda and the rest of the family. I'm numb at this point. It doesn't feel real. I've yet to shed a tear, but I know they're coming. This whole time, my brain hasn't been able to wrap itself around the situation. I'm at a loss, and I've just been praying constantly. Renee has kept in touch with Amanda through this. Every time we talk about it, all I can say is, let's just keep praying and waiting for good news. What else can you do? Amanda told Renee that when Brodie found out she was pregnant, he smiled, which was a good sign. As much emotion as he'd been able to show in a long time. By the time this book comes out, every nice thing said about Jonathan Huber will have been said. Brodie, a fellow Jonathan, but he'll always be Brodie to me, was one of the best people in the business. One of the best people I knew. Cliche as it sounds, you'll never find anyone who had a bad word to say about him. He'd been my friend for over a decade and one of my favorite and most frequent opponents. On the Indies, in the Shield Wyatt family wars, and ultimately in AEW, where we wrestled our final match on pay-per-view for the World Championship. He was brought into FCW for a tryout several months after I got there. Since we were friends and had wrestled each other many times before, Joey Mercury asked me if I would work a match with him to be filmed and sent to the office. I obliged without hesitation, of course, but this was a lot of pressure. All of this man's hopes and dreams, his family's future, was riding on this. I had to make him look like $1 million. I took his big boss man slam so good that it looked like a tornado tore through the gym. I bumped my ass off and took a hell of a beating. Brodie got hired, and I never let him forget he'd be substitute teaching in Rochester, if not for me selling it like I was Jamie Lee Curtis to make him look like Michael Myers in his tryout. We joked about that often, but of course, Brodie was hired because of his exceptional talent. He was an athletic big man who could work circles around almost anybody. Brodie's upside was can't miss. He ended up opposite me in the Wyatt family. As I was part of the Shield, we were on opposite sides of the demarcation line that divided SWAT dudes and the Swamp dudes. I can't begin to count how many matches we had on TV, pay-per-view, and at live events in every town you could think of all across the US. Sometimes on long, grueling European tours, we'd do lucha spots just to pop the boys at the monitor. We shared the closest thing I'd have to a WrestleMania moment in a multi-man ladder match. I figured the best way to make the highlight reel was to nearly kill myself with a death-defying bump. We devised a spot where we would powerbomb me from the ring through the steel ladder to the floor. Falling backwards at such an angle was extremely high-risk bump. I said at the time and have always maintained that I wouldn't have trusted anyone else on the planet with that spot but Brodie. I literally put my life into his hands. Jesus and Brodie, take the wheel. A couple of staples in my head, but I walked away unscathed thanks to my friend's guiding hands. Vince freaked the fuck out in Gorilla. He thought I was dead. It was a gnarly bump and we made the highlight reel. When Brodie got his release from WWE, I was texting him from Sapporo. I gave him the lay of the land from my experience so far outside the WWE bubble. I was excited that he'd be coming to AEW, if for no other reason than just to have him around again, to laugh, to joke, to tell stories. I was always on the same wavelength as Brodie. Like me, he was a big MMA fan, and I'd always hunt him down to discuss the latest fights. An opportunity opened up for him to jump in and wrestle me at Double or Nothing on pay-per-view on a few weeks' notice. When Tony suggested Brodie, I said, hell yeah, I can wrestle him in my sleep. I was so happy that he'd get to show the world what he could do in a main event spot. Tony, Brodie, and I had a 3-way phone call and mapped out a 3-week angle that had Brodie and the Dark Order stealing the championship belt. He took it home, and Amanda sent Renee a video of his son, little Brodie, proudly holding it while cutting a hellacious promo on me. We were on the same wavelength. Our vision for the match was a 12 to 15 minute hailstorm of violence. Brodie had the idea of crashing through the stage. I won with a choke. That match was the embodiment of what I wanted my style to be, a mixture of wild violence and pure wrestling, an in-your-face thrash metal sprint. I'm eternally grateful to Brodie for creating and sharing that night with me. I think it was our best match. The year 2020 has hit everyone hard, but this has been particularly tough to swallow. I feel sick. I miss him every time I'm in a locker room. I had an idea tucked away in the back of my mind to make a run at the tag belts with Brodie as a Shield Wyatt super team. We'll have to save that one for the next life. Yesterday was Christmas Day, and for many people it was a little different for us due to the pandemic. Just me and Renee at home this year, so we decided to go on a Christmas morning hike in Red Rock Canyon. At the end of the Calico Tanks Trail, I looked up on the ridge and spotted a bighorn sheep. I'm always on the lookout for them. I've seen them in Utah and the Valley of Fire, but never in Red Rock. He came down to the side of the cliff, passed us by, and went back up the other side of the canyon in less than a minute. It felt like a Christmas gift, maybe a sign. Maybe a sign to keep your eyes open and enjoy the beauty around you while it's here. Enjoy the people and love people while they're here. Maybe a sign that 2021 will be better for everyone. I don't know what it meant, if anything, but I'll remember that sheep. Brodie, it was a pleasure to share the ring with you and an honor to be your friend. I love you. P.S. If you see Grant up there, tell him I said what's up. He'll be at the bar. And then, in the greatest Jon Moxley way ever, the next chapter is titled Sandwiches.
Oh, that's thanks for reading that out, Dickie. That's certainly, really well put there by Moxley, and something very, very poignant, because you won't hear a bad word said about Brodie Lee. And I think, like you were saying earlier, all the stuff we could have got, that, Shield Wyatt's tag team, we had so much more to give, and it's just heartbreaking hearing Moxley sort of lay it all out there, what was going on, the pandemic and everything, and then this to come and hit everyone after, especially considering how close Renee and Mox were with not just Brodie, but his extended family, and it wasn't just wrestling in the ring, it was everything outside it as well. So yeah, thanks for reading that out. It's definitely a poignant passage in his book.
I guess the only thing to point out the other things to point out from that is that like, I guess when I read this the other day, but I wasn't really focused on it. But of course, it mentioned opportunity came up to wrestle him on a pay-per-view with 3 weeks notice. So obviously, whatever was planned for this Double or Nothing pay-per-view was not going to be Brodie Lee.
No.
And so I guess it'd be interesting to find out what that plan was. I guess, there's a number of talent who, all the talent was given the option to stay home because, of course, for health reasons, or if you've got,
people that you live with that, also have, maybe are immunocompromised or something like that. They could stay home, and a number of talent did. So it may have been someone like that as well. But yeah, I guess that is just sort of how it went, and they had to put someone in the spot, and there was an opportunity, and they wanted to do it, and so they did it. And I guess when you look at it like that, I'm glad they did, because he still ended up with the condition that he got. It wasn't COVID related, so if there wasn't a pandemic, unfortunately, it would appear that he was still going to die that later that year, and they probably may not have had a match, because they probably would have saved it for a different time, sort of thing. So yeah, I was going to say bittersweet, but I don't really feel like it's like that at all. It's I remember at the time when I saw the news, it was very. I usually don't get quite emotional over these things. Like even when I see people like, even like people from our childhood, that maybe we watched on TV, it's like, oh, this person, has died or whatever. And you're like, I don't really get affected by that. Obviously it's very sad and all that sort of stuff. But this was different, and I did not feel good. And then I started reading all of the outpouring of love, and I was like, it's just one of the things that you didn't know about this guy. I didn't know at the time. I don't think any of us really did, just how much he was loved by absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
And it also made me feel kind of shit, because I was like, if I suddenly passed away, I don't think there's going to be that many people who would be like, he was the kindest person ever to me. He loved, you know what I mean? Like people would probably say like, oh, he's quite talented, he's funny or something. But I was like, it is unheard of to really see this outpouring unanimously of people just like literally just saying, this was the kindest person I've ever met, kind of thing. And that's a, and that hurts even more.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, because you don't want those people to leave this earth, whoever they are.
Well, that's the thing as well. Obviously, it was devastating. It came as a huge shock, I think. Well, certainly to me, and I imagine a lot of fans, it was like a massive shock, especially around that Christmas time when everyone was sort of dealing with COVID and everything. But it, like you noted at the start, I am glad that he managed to get out of WWE and have that sort of like as brief as it was, that run in AEW, because we got, it was a shame it was during the pandemic and it was empty arena wrestling, but at least we did get, this match with Mox and him coming in with the Dark Order and the matches with Cody and stuff like that. So at least he got that, because obviously he wasn't happy in his time in WWE. So it's good that at least for that final year, he managed to get out and, be doing some enjoyable stuff for a change, rather than whatever the fuck Vince McMahon had him doing. But yeah, like you said, nobody had a bad word to say him, and I think everyone was just in shock. And like you said, it was really emotional reading out everything that was coming out at the time, and then after subsequently with Mox's book and everything. So yeah, but thank you so much for reading that out. I know it wasn't easy for you, but yeah, it's certainly interesting hearing Mox's side of that there. But I suppose there's no easy way to transition out of that, but you
want to talk about Elon Musk now?
I mean, before we get in there, obviously, thanks obviously to Braden and Davey for having us as part of their feed, because they've got tons of great shows on the free feed, Shot in the Dark with Cino, textual the wrestling that you might have missed or don't want to watch. Davey and Braden with the weekly Poison Rana show, Cino and B, Warp Dough every month. And then on the Poison Rana Patreon, only $5, you get tons and tons, some great movie reviews like Halloween H2O or H20O, you want to say, along with some great Loomis costumes that the lads did. And they've also reviewed Best Match Ever by Abyss, the third episode of The Champ is Here, the great show about John Cena's title runs and much, much more. So definitely check out Poison Rana on the Patreon and also the free feed, which is where our show is. And then make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching today. And yeah, we can get into that if you want, Dickie, because I made well, I suppose it's hardly like a big life-altering moment. But yeah, I fucked my Twitter off this, this week after everything with the US election. I've been meaning to do it for ages because it's just you open it up, it's all ads and bots and crap and everything like that. So, but we've got this new thing in Blue Sky, haven't we? And it seems that, not just me and you, but a load of other people have headed over there. You've got Poison Rana on there, all the post crew are on there. I am working on Andrew Thompson. He is going to be setting an account up there, hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, everyone seems to be moving over there. It just seems to be a discussion rather than having to wade through a load of crap to find out stuff you actually want to see. So yeah, rather than plugging Twitter this month, we'll be plugging. Go and follow us on Blue Sky. I'm the usual handle, Bushby01. If you just search that in, you'll be finding me. So, yeah. And you've also made the jump over there as well, haven't you, Dickie?
Yeah, so my Twitter account still exists just because I'm in the process of trying to make sure that I don't leave any accounts behind and I'm just busy with other stuff. But my account, and I believe Brandon's still exists as well, but they're both locked. So, we're not accepting any new followers. Basically, it's just it's pretty much a dead account in many ways, and I'm will be turning it off as soon as I feel comfortable enough. Which is, thankfully this transition is working. Enough people are coming over, and there's enough engagement happening that people aren't, what's kind of happened in the past is they go, oh, yeah, I'm kind of sick of this place, so I'll try this other place. And then it's a, desert town, which, Blue Sky has been around for a while. And so a lot of people did experience that. And so they didn't really, bother. But of course, we've all been on X, Twitter, and there's been a lot of propaganda and misinformation floating around about the US election and about a lot of other stuff as well, even your country, my country. And we were all just optimistic about the fact that surely people aren't actually falling for this stuff. Surely it's just shit that's just going out there that it's just like, come on, nobody's gullible enough to really read, believe, and subscribe to this shit. It's just Elon Musk just pumping the crap out of it because he owns the company, so he can skew it one way all he wants. But I mean, really, come on, no one's fucking gullible enough to believe this. Then the US election happened, and it was like, oh, right, I gave people the benefit of the doubt. I'm actually the idiot here. And, oh, by the way, I also don't want to be on a platform with a bunch of other nationalists and Nazis. So see you later. I'm out. It's not a everyone's like, oh, you're creating another echo chamber. No, I just don't want to be there anymore. That's it. And it's not. No one's creating another echo chamber. The one that we were in was an echo chamber, okay? And we just didn't realize, or it was like we just continued to stay there. It's a shame that Brandon's not here because he would sort of know more. Have you heard of Rumble? Do you know what?
Oh yeah, that's like the right wing YouTube.
It's like the right wing YouTube.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, do you use Rumble?
No, never.
No, because it's the right-wing YouTube. Why would I want to go over and use that stuff, right? So I'm just happy continuing to use YouTube. What if I told you one day you woke up and all of a sudden YouTube is now Rumble? It just happened. The thing that you use every day is now that one thing that you were trying to avoid. And then I told you that, well, that thing over there, this new thing, is the old YouTube. You'd be like, well, I'm not creating an echo chamber by going to the thing that I was at originally, am I?
Yep.
So that's all that we're doing, and it's just like people, you need to understand if you're thinking it's like, oh, this and that, or it'll never work and stuff like that. I don't care. I don't want to be on the other thing. That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is. So I'm
also, it's a place to have discussions though as well, isn't it? You know, you're not going to agree. There's loads. I've been on there for like about a week now. And there's loads of stuff I see on there that I disagree with. It's not wrong or right. You know what I mean? It's not like everyone's got the same opinion of me, and that's a good thing. You can go on there and have reasonable discussions without, you know, having a load of like bots replying to you or you know, all this sort of like really sort of like toxic environment that is what X had become.
It is. Elon Musk says X is the platform for free speech. But people have to censor their own posts, their own tweets with little, you know, star symbols in the certain words so that they don't get attacked by people, but they don't have bots who are crawling for these words, like they're crawling through. That's why, you know, you can't write the word Nazi if you have a publicly open account, because all of a sudden it gets picked up by all these bot farms and even just and actual people who are monitoring for these words to come after you. So it's like, it's not free speech when people feel in danger to actually, they have to censor themselves so that they're not attacked, sort of thing. So it's just like, it's not a way to live. Like, it's not a way, like, don't get me wrong, social media is not the end of the world or whatever, but I mean, I enjoy it as a way of getting news or having discussions or seeing what my friends are up to. I like it more than Facebook for that, because that's just what my fucking second cousin is on, talking about his bowel movements, and I don't really want to know about that shit, you know. It's like, so like I do want to have this space, but I'm not going to mortgage that for all this other propaganda. So look, if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh god, blue sky, I don't really care, I'm not on Twitter and stuff like that. If you're not really on Twitter or whatever, but you do have an actual Twitter account, close it, get rid of it, because these are shutting down. 115,000 accounts the day after the election were shut down, and that number is just going to continue like that. And the shitty people are going to stay on Twitter, excuse me, on X, because they pay to be there. They're not going to move. They pay for the privilege to be a cunt. And so they're just going to continue doing that on the platform that they're at. And the rest of us who are like, why would you pay for Twitter? We'll just go somewhere else and say the same thing, kind of thing. And then Twitter is kind of like, it's going to end up being a bit of a bubble, because the advertisers are going to be like, well, there's no people here. The only people, well, I don't want to say no people, but it's like, there's not as many people here. And the people who didn't leave are on paid accounts who don't really see ads. So like, what the hell's going on? So it's kind of like a bubble. But I mean, for us, the best that we can do is just say, see you later, I'm out of here. Close it. I mean, obviously some accounts like the Poison Rana account still going to exist on X because it's like a business account. My Chop Teas account is still going to exist on X because it is a business account. As Michael Jordan once said, Republicans still buy shoes, right? Yeah. So it's sort of like, you know, you can't forget that part of it, sort of thing. But me personally, you know, it's not like I use the Chop Teas account to look at anything. It's literally a one-way street. I'm just putting information out. But for me, gaining information and consuming advertising, I'm not on X anymore. I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm not going back. We are not going back. A man who told people, a man who promoted, who paid to have people's choice, women's choice taken away from them, we're going to tell him that we have a choice. Yep. Okay, it's not the same, but we're going to show you don't own people. And that, you know, this is the best thing that you can do to show that, you know.
Yeah, like I said, everyone's on there, so go if you haven't set up an account. Yeah, definitely go and add us all on there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been enjoying it. You know, if it doesn't work out with that, then I guess I'm done with sort of like social media. You know, I guess I'll just carry on with my life, but I'm sure it will. They seem to be getting millions and millions all the time and stuff like that, and it seems to be a good discussion over there. Yeah, so it's gone. We're easy enough to find. Dickie Bird, Poison Rana, you know, Davey, Braden. So yeah, go head over there, and we will be back with you next month. All three of us, hopefully. I'm sure Brendan will sort out whatever issues he had. You know, he was trying on there, but I think he had some obviously issues with the 5G in his car or whatever. So he did break out, but I'm sure he'll be back next month, and we will catch you all then. Ambrose.
Poison Rana.